Nothing sets the tone for a good horror game like a truly badass female character. From iconic Resident Evil ladies to indie horror games, there have been plenty of female lead horror games that captured our hearts. And on today's list, I'm paying respects to the iconic woman of survival horror that showed us that they were not someone to fuck with. The only rule for today's video is that I'll only feature one character per franchise. Before we get started though, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel if you like the content that I bring you guys. Also, leave a like on today's video if you enjoyed today's topic. Anyway, this is Ruben with Nerd Space Games, and this is my top 10 most badass female protagonists in horror games. Let's get it. Number 10, Fiona, Haunted Ground.
It's okay, Huey. He can't come after us anymore. Good boy.
In this game, Fiona finds herself in a castle surrounded by terrifying and persistent stalker enemies. Unfortunately, Fiona doesn't have much to defend herself, unlike most protagonists on this list. Instead, she relies on her intelligence, stealth abilities, and of course, Huey, a dog that assists Fiona throughout the game. Fiona isn't your typical badass, as she won't be pulling off feats like Lara Croft and Tomb Raider, but the fact that she's able to find a way to survive so many encounters with some of the most disturbing enemies in horror games without a way to defend herself makes her stand out anyway. Number 9, Jennifer, Rule of Rose. Jennifer is an icon from yet another underrated horror game. In fact, I would argue that Rule of Rose is the most underrated classic survival horror game ever created. If you haven't played this game yet and you have a way to play it, then I definitely recommend it. Anyway, Jennifer finds herself kidnapped by a group of orphans and forced to live with them. What follows is one of the more interesting bits of storytelling that dives into Jennifer's character, making her one of the more intriguing characters in survival horror games. While her combat skills are nothing compared to some entries farther up on today's list, Jennifer stands out with her personality, backstory, and adaptability to a very fucked up situation that she finds herself in. Number 8, Caroline Walker, Tormented Souls. Talking about Caroline Walker and the story of Tormented Souls without diving too much into spoiler territory is a little difficult, so bear with me for not providing a ton of details. Regardless, Caroline Walker is one of my favorite indie horror game protagonists, and after the success of the original game, we are finally getting a sequel later this year. Tormented Souls follows Caroline as she wakes up in a mansion that was once an asylum while also missing one of her eyes. Upon exploring the asylum, Caroline comes across monsters that remind me of Silent Hill's creatures and other supernatural events that will lead you on a journey to unravel the mystery of this mansion. What makes Caroline a badass in Tormented Souls is the commitment that she has with solving the mystery behind the mansion without any resolve for her own well-being. She continues to push past every obstacle and make tough choices to continue moving forward through the mansion. Again, can't say that much, but let me tell you, she's committed and she does things that I know I wouldn't be able to do. Number 7, Brea, Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve took survival horror and then combined it with elements that the developers were familiar with, RPG. Considering that Parasite Eve came from Square Enix, it's not that surprising that it featured RPG elements. Regardless, Parasite Eve is a beloved franchise, or at least the first 2 games are, and a big part of that comes from the badass hero of the games, Brea. This badass cop is more than meets the eye, as not only does she have a decent arsenal at her disposal to fight off the creatures of the game, but she also has her own supernatural abilities. The commitment and sacrifice that Brea brings to the table is astonishing as she continues to battle some of the most terrifying creatures, all to protect human and animal life around the world. Number 6, Regina, Dino Crisis.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
It's hard not to respect someone that can go toe-to-toe with dinosaurs. Regina from Dino Crisis is a red-haired female protagonist that finds herself against an island full of dinosaurs in the first game, as she's sent here with her special ops team to investigate the research facility. Appearing in the original game and the second entry, Regina must use her resources and some time travel abilities to rescue survivors and defeat dinosaurs. Her attitude and the fact that she's able to take on a fucking T-Rex are just a couple of reasons why Regina finds herself in the top 10 of most badass female protagonists. Number 5, Clementine, The Walking Dead.
Holy shit. What the? How the hell did it get in here?
I'm still not bitten. I never was.
There are 2 characters on today's list that we see face off against monsters and zombies at a very young age, but then we get to watch them grow over time. One of those characters is Clementine. Clearly the youngest entry on today's list, Clementine first appears in TellTale Season 1 of The Walking Dead. While only having a brief moment of a playable section for her in the first season, Clementine becomes the lead protagonist for the remaining seasons of the series. As a young girl, Clementine starts off as a timid and shy character that finds herself in a world where the dead walk.
It's okay. I think she was a monster.
Throughout the seasons though, Clementine continues to build up her character as she learns to be more resourceful, more dependable, and overall more of a badass. From raising a baby alone in the middle of the apocalypse as a child to leading a group to safety, Clementine continues to defy expectations each time we see her on screen. Seeing what she has to do to survive, the choices that she has to make, and the obstacles that she has to overcome, Clementine easily earns herself a spot in the top 5 for this list. Number 4, Ellie Williams, Last of Us. The other character that we see as a child in the middle of the apocalypse is Ellie. While not as young as Clementine when we first see her, Ellie is still a young girl who finds herself in a situation where she potentially holds the key to humanity's salvation. As the only living person to not become infected after being bit, the Fireflies set out to get Ellie to their headquarters in an effort to create a cure. Joel is hired as her bodyguard, and the events that follow are some of the best storytelling ever seen in horror games. So good in fact that we got an amazing HBO series based on the game. Ellie is without a doubt one of the biggest badasses that I've seen in video games. She doesn't take any shit from anyone, and she's always pushing herself to fight back against terrible odds. From taking on a cannibalistic cult leader to hunting down a group of armed men and women in the second game, Ellie doesn't know when to give up. Her hilarious attitude and personality, the amount of people and monsters she has to kill to survive, and the amount of times that she overcomes all odds that are stacked against her, Ellie is definitely one of the most badass female protagonists in horror games. Number 3, Amanda Ripley, Alien Isolation.
Samuels, listen to me. It's not safe here. Seegson's got this place locked tight. Their goddamn androids are killing people.
That's impossible. It's contrary to primary synthetic programming.
I've seen it, Samuels. I guess Seegson's got a different idea about synthetics. And there's something else here. A creature, it's big and it's lethal.
While not as iconic as Ellie from The Last of Us, Amanda Ripley is every bit of a badass as her mother is, Ellen Ripley, from the Alien movies. Finding herself on a space station with a highly intelligent xenomorph stalking her every move and androids around every corner, Amanda must overcome the odds of survival and use her limited resources to escape the space station. Considering this creature managed to bring down most of the space station on its own, It makes Amanda's chances of survival very small and truly impressive each time she gets out of a bad situation. From using flamethrowers and flares to keep the xenomorph at bay to fending off attacks from criminals and androids, Amanda continues to battle through many enemies on the space station in an effort to escape and survive with her crew members. Alien Isolation is one of the scariest games out there, and with one of the most intelligent AIs and a stalker enemy, seeing Amanda overcome it is something that will stick with us gamers for years to come. This badass female protagonist deserves another Alien game, so give it to us, please. Give us a fucking sequel. Number 2, Heather Mason, Silent Hill 3.
Listen, suffering is a fact of life. Either you learn how to deal with that or you go under. You can stay in your own little dream world, but you can't keep hurting other people. Besides, I'll never forgive you for hurting my father.
On paper, Heather Mason may look like your traditional teenage girl, but she's anything but. As a reincarnation of both Alyssa and Cheryl, Heather is tracked down by the Order, a cult obsessed with giving birth to their version of God. After locating Heather, the leader of the Order, Claudia murders Heather's father in an effort to motivate her to follow the cult back to Silent Hill for revenge. Heather is a complete psychopath as she heads all the way to Silent Hill, knowing that there will be monsters straight out of her nightmares there, all to get revenge on the woman that killed her father. Instead of giving into her fears, Heather faces them head on and demonstrates her resolve without even being scared in the slightest. Even as she faces God, or a deformed reincarnation version of it, Heather simply looks it in the face and insults it for killing Claudia before she had the chance to do so. Who does that?
You can't be dead. I was gonna kill you.
Number 1, Jill Valentine, Resident Evil.
Next time, take the fucking hit!
After everything Jill has been through, of course she's the number 1 badass female protagonist in a horror game. Honestly, I almost gave it to Ada Wong, but considering what Jill has gone through, I had to give her the slight edge. Plus, I wouldn't necessarily call Ada a protagonist, more like an anti-hero. Regardless, starting from the beginning, Jill faced BOWs before most characters in the series did. With no knowledge or experience with BOWs, Jill and the rest of the stars had to find a way to survive the Spencer Mansion incident. It doesn't stop there though. While Chris and the rest of the star survivors left Raccoon City to bring Umbrella down, Jill stayed in the city to face Umbrella and Chief Irons alone in an effort to expose them before any harm can come to the city, which led to probably her biggest badass achievement, surviving Nemesis, a BOW designed specifically for assassination and sent after the surviving members of STARS. Nemesis was an unstoppable machine. With plenty of weapons available to him and healing abilities that made him indestructible, Nemesis proved to be one of the most dangerous BOWs ever created. Yet Jill found a way to survive again and again with each encounter with him until she eventually killed him. From taking on the superhuman Albert Wesker to surviving a city full of monsters while Nemesis hunted her down, Jill Valentine proved that no matter what you threw at her, she would always come out on top.
You're a fool! If I die, you'll never find out the truth!
I don't mind a little detective work.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Nerd Space Games. Hit up the comments and let me know what you think of my list. Is Jill Valentine the most badass female protagonist in a horror game, or do you think someone else should have claimed that title? Also, is there anybody that I missed completely for this list? Let me know down below. Anyway, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to my channel for more survival horror content. Also, leave a like on today's video if you enjoyed today's topic. But thanks for watching, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Nerd Space Games. Take care.